Okay, so I have a bit of extra time, maybe. So my name is Hugues Juillet. So I'm a member of the IBM, of the analytics team in the IBM France lab. And I'm going to talk about prescriptive analytics and a Python package that we developed for doing prescriptive analytics, which is called DuCplex. So I don't know, that's my first time at PyData. So it seems that it's really a community of data-oriented people. So prescriptive analytics would be, maybe the step after. It's really about optimization. So optimization has been around for 20, 30 years. It was mainly used by experts, in operations research. But we do think that, especially thanks to Python, the optimization technology can be now used by a lot of, many more people. So IBM, has developed several products for prescriptive analytics. In particular, Cplex, it's the leading optimization engine, and it has been around for more than 20 years. And so we also investigated the use of Python, to support the development of optimization solutions. And the results of this investigation, is the DuCplex open source package. That allows the development of optimization models in Python. So this is the agenda for my presentation. So first, I will spend a few slides to talk about prescriptive analytics, to really make sure that everybody understands what it is about. And then, prescriptive analytics, it's really about formulating optimization models. And currently, those models are implemented using some dedicated, specialized language for optimization modeling. But we do think that Python can be, we can take advantage of Python expressiveness to propose an alternative to those specialized modeling languages. So DuCplex is the package that we implemented and that uses Python, to do modeling of optimization problems. So I will illustrate with an example, how we can implement, a very simple model, a very simple optimization problem with DuCplex in the scope of a notebook. And also, going further, when we want to develop, large and complex optimization problems, there are some data issues, and in optimization, we manipulate a lot matrices. We use a lot matrix-oriented representations. And a package like Pandas, can help a lot for improving modeling capabilities. So, what is prescriptive analytics? So prescriptive analytics would be the third and final phase in business analytics. So business analytics, it relies on a data warehouse architecture to ingest and analyze, large and diverse data sets. So, and the purpose of of business analytics, it's really to get some insights and understanding about, business performance by exploiting all this data. So those are the three phases. First we have what we call, descriptive analytics. It's really about, using data mining, to analyze the data and to get some insights about the past. For example, typically it can be classifying customers in groups. Then there is predictive analytics. So predictive analytics it's more about understanding the future. It's using statistical modeling and forecast techniques to make some predictions about the future. Typically, one wants to generate a forecast for customer demand or for the evolution of prices. So this is predictive analytics. Then prescriptive analytics, builds upon this information. For example, prescriptive analytics is going to take the result or the outcome of predictive analytics to go to the next phase, which is really to recommend actions to take in the future. Based on desired outcomes and taking into account, I mean, some specific scenarios, limited resources, or knowledge of past and current events. I mean, the purpose of prescriptive analytics, I mean, like predictive or descriptive analytics, I mean, it's really to help organization, but also to help them to make better decisions and have greater control of their business. So, I mean, prescriptive analytics, so as I said, it's really about optimization. So here are a few examples of application. I mean, optimization, it's, for example, to help businesses, I mean, to create best possible plans. I mean, for example, take an airline company, and you want to best allocate aircraft and crews so that all the regulations and operational constraints are satisfied. Also, I mean, you have a forecast for customer demand, and you want to plan your production. So you want to know, I mean, what you want to produce, where, and when. Also, I mean, optimization can be used to explore alternatives and understand trade-offs. I mean, for example, I mean, for customer satisfaction, if you want to maximize your customer satisfaction, I mean, you will want, for example, to have higher stocks. But having higher stocks also means higher inventory cost. So there's also a trade-off to find and, I mean, to be analyzed. And optimization can help to find and analyze this kind of trade-off. Also, I mean, in operations, you may want to respond to changes in business operations. For example, I mean, if there's a technical problem with the plane, or because of bad weather condition, you need to close a plant, then that means you quickly need to react and adjust your plans so that you take into account those changes. So this is really what optimization is used to do. So, I mean, in a more, I mean, formal framework, I mean, how does optimization work? So first, I mean, it's really, I mean, you need, I mean, to use optimization, you need first a formal representation of your problem. I mean, in this representation, I mean, the purpose of this representation is really to capture all the relevant information, like what are the available resources, I mean, what is the expected demand, I mean, the forecast for demand, what are the operational constraints, what are the desired outcomes, I mean, what are the business goals, but also, I mean, what are the possible actions that may be taken. So really the purpose of this representation or this optimization model is to create a kind of a huge search space of possibilities. And this is the modeling part. Then the purpose of the optimization engine is to explore this search space and to find the best decisions given your business goals. And the outcome of the optimization engine will be, for example, I mean, your production plan in your plant. I mean, so what we're going to do actually, it's really to focus on the mathematical models part. Because today, I mean, there are some specialized, I mean, dedicated modeling languages that take care of this part. And I'm not going to talk at all about the optimization engines. Because, I mean, it's really, the purpose of the mathematical model is to create this representation of your business problem, and then it is sent to the optimization engine, which will solve your problem. So, okay, to make it, I mean, a bit more formal, so just to summarize. So, an optimization model, it's composed of 3 parts. So there is first the decision variables, and that's the possible actions that that can be taken. There are the constraints, which are really the representation of your model, of your problem, and an objective function, which you will want to minimize or maximize. So solving a model means finding an assignment to those decision variables that will minimize or maximize the objective function, subject to meeting all the constraints. Okay. So then, okay, that's let's say there are 2 main technologies for optimization. I mean, there's one which is well known. I mean, which is a mathematical programming model. I mean, mathematical programming. So it is used a lot. I mean, in the community of operations research. there's a very strong theoretical background for mathematical programming. And I mean, the theoretical studies of mathematical programming started, I mean, after the Second World War. I mean, it's a very old technology. But it improved a lot over time. So, I mean, in mathematical programming, there are, I mean, several classes I mean, several families of models. But just to take the simplest one, I mean, which is linear programming. I mean, a model in a linear programming is simply composed of a collection of linear equations. I mean, for example, I mean, the x and xj are the decision variables, and the a, b, and c's are constant coefficients. So what this actually means is that, okay, you have your decision variables, you define constraints as linear expressions, and you define your objective function also as a linear expression. So at the end, what you have is really a huge matrix, and the mathematical programming engine will find the best assignments for your decision variables in this matrix. So then there are some variations, I mean, to linear programming. I mean, in some models, you can have quadratic expressions, for example. Also, your decision variables may be subject to be discrete. I mean, you may want only, I mean, this is the case for mixed integer programming, which considers integer variables. So this is what a model in mathematical programming looks like. The second technology, I mean, which is called constraints programming, originates more from the field of artificial intelligence. I mean, it's a bit more recent, and it does not have the same formal background as mathematical programming, but it's used a lot, and it's very efficient for some classes of problems, especially for combinatorial problems and for scheduling problems. So it's more or less, I mean, it takes the same idea of having decision variables and constraints, but there is more flexibility, I mean, to represent the model. For example, I mean, it uses only discrete variables, but also it can use composite variables. I mean, for example, for scheduling problems, it's very convenient to consider, I mean, a task which has a start time and a duration. So there are actually two decision variables when you consider a task, and this can be captured in a higher level construct, which we call an interval. It's a kind of a composite decision variable. Then there's a rich set of logical and arithmetic or functional constraints. I mean, for example, I mean, at IBM we have a constraint programming engine called CPU. I mean, it has a library of more than 150 functions, I mean, to define constraints on your decision variables. Okay. But for the rest, I mean, I will be focusing on mathematical programming. Okay. So then, I mean, why Python for prescriptive analytics? So first, okay, I will show you, I mean, what one of those dedicated modeling language looks like. I mean, so there are several modeling languages which are around. I mean, there are, for example, AMPL, GAMS, and OPL, which is the one that we develop at IBM. So let's look at a very simple, I mean, optimization problem. I mean, we want to produce, I mean, a couple of products which are made of components. For making 1 unit of a product, you need a number of units of each ingredient, of each component. Then there is a profit associated to each unit of product that is produced. And also you have a stock for each of the components. So the problem is just, I mean, how much should you produce of each of those products so that you want to maximize the profit subject to that your demand of components cannot exceed stocks. So if we look at the mathematical representation, so it's very simple. So we have decision variables, which are the production, which are greater or equals to 0. We have the objective, which is to maximize profit. So it's really the amount produced times the profit, which is summed over all the possible products. And then there's a constraint. I mean, demand cannot exceed stocks, I mean, the demand for components. So again, this is modeled as a constraint. I mean, the demand, I mean, the amount produced times the requirements for the component, summed over all the components, cannot exceed the stock, sum over all the products, sorry, cannot exceed the stock for the component. So translated in OPL language, I mean, this looks like that. I mean, you declare your decision variables, you define your objective function, so you retrieve, I mean, it's the sum over all products of this expression, and then you define your constraints. So again, it's for all, I mean, for all components, then the sum over all products of demand times production is less or equal than stock. So the formulation of the problem in those languages is actually very close to mathematical programming, I mean, to the mathematical representation, so which makes it very convenient. But then when you look at this formulation, you think that maybe by using Python expressiveness, we can do something which has really the same flavor. And this is what we wanted to do. So what we wanted to do is really to take advantage of Python expressiveness, I mean, which has already generators, I mean, to iterate over collections. Aggregators, you can do operator overloading, so that you can really implement a very nice mathematical API by extending, by enriching Python. You also have the concept of tuples. So we do think that Python capabilities make it a viable alternative to the specialized modeling language. But also, I mean, it really has many other advantages. I mean, first, I mean, those specialized languages, they're really dedicated to the modeling part. But then when you have to run in production, I mean, you have to integrate this model with other components, I mean, with other software components. I mean, for doing data integration, I mean, for importing data, manipulating data, doing visualization, and then you need to export your data to some information system. So actually, all those things can be done in Python. So it is very nice to have a single language to handle the full workflow of a typical optimization application. Also, I mean, Python, I mean, there's a rich ecosystem of libraries. Some of them can support, I mean, this modeling effort by providing efficient data structures to manipulate vectors or matrices. So, again, I mean, it's very nice, I mean, to have a single optimization, I mean, programming language to handle the full workflow. So also, I mean, you're very familiar with that, but I mean, with Python, I mean, what is nice is that there are already some distributions that are available for Python, which make available already a full list of libraries which are very useful for developing prescriptive analytics applications. What is great is notebooks. I mean, so, I mean, myself, I mean, I started learning Python only 6 months ago. But using notebooks, I mean, notebooks is really a great technology. And it's very useful for developing optimization model because of this interactive programming style. You can really do some tests, I mean, try and test very effectively. And it's very useful, I mean, when you develop some optimization models. So it's really a great technology. And also it's very nice to communicate, I mean, because in a notebook you can combine, I mean, documentation with your code. So it's very convenient, I mean, to exchange with people. And also, I mean, Python is also a way to leverage big data tools such as Apache Spark. I mean, the potential, I mean, optimization is really CPU intensive. I mean, it needs a lot of CPUs. So with Apache Spark, there's a potential for using clusters of processors to address, I mean, more complex optimization problems, but also to investigate, I mean, to run in parallel several optimization problems. Okay. So now I'm going to present, I mean, DuCPlex, which is, I mean, the actual package that we developed, I mean, to exploit, I mean, this idea. So, I mean, there are several goals to DuCPlex. I mean, first, okay. So DuCPlex, okay, it's an open source package that can help you, okay, to formulate your optimization models. Also, DuCPlex can be used to solve this optimization model. So, but to solve them, I mean, what it means is that you need to send, I mean, your model to an optimization engine. So there are several ways to do it. You can either solve on the cloud. So in that case, you can, for example, you can submit, I mean, we have the IBM Decision Optimization on the Cloud Solve service. So this means you can open an account on this service and you can submit your job to be solved using, I mean, to be solved on the cloud. You can also solve locally. In that case, that means you need to install Cplex locally on your machine. But in both cases, I mean, there is no change to your code. I mean, it's exactly the same code. Then, I mean, the goal of DoCplex is also, I mean, to encourage, I mean, the use of optimization. So you also have access to free solve capabilities. I mean, you don't have to necessarily, I mean, if you want to test this technology, you don't have to pay. I mean, you can really test it for free. For example, you can register for a free trial, I mean, if you want to solve on the cloud. But also, if you want to solve locally, I mean, there's a free community edition of the Cplex Optimization Studio. So the Cplex Optimization Studio, it combines an IDE for developing optimization models in the OPL language that I talked about. But it also includes, I mean, the two optimization engines, I mean, Cplex and CPO, I mean, for constraints programming. The only limitation with this free edition, with this free community edition, is that you are limited in the size of the models. I mean, you are limited to 1,000 variables and 1,000 constraints. But you can already develop some nice optimization problems. And then if you want to try it on big problems, you can try the solve service on the cloud. And if you really want to run in production, then you have to subscribe. I mean, okay. There's one line missing, okay, which is that if you want to get DoCplex, I mean, just do PyPy. It's available, I mean, in the PyPy repository, or just Google it. And that's really, I mean, PyPy is really the entry point, I mean, for if you want to try DoCplex, because you will have access, I mean, to all online documentation and examples. So, okay, as I said, I mean, our motivation is really, I mean, to encourage the use of this kind of technology. So all documentation and resources are available online. So there are a lot of examples and cookbooks or notebooks that show you, I mean, first, I mean, for all levels. I mean, first, if you don't even know about Python, it tells you how to install your Python environment. But then it also presents, I mean, the different technologies, I mean, the mathematical programming and constraint programming technologies. So there's really an introduction to those technologies. Then there are many examples and notebooks to illustrate the use of these technologies, I mean, using DoCplex. And for advanced users, I mean, we have also, of course, reference manuals for the APIs. And also, I mean, we have a community and forums, I mean, for asking questions about DoCplex. So this is really, okay, what DoCplex is about. So now let me show you, I mean, what a model implemented with DoCplex looks like. So first, okay, you need to import the package. So it's, very simple, I mean, usual. Then the first step is to create the container for your model. So you just create an instance of a model object. This model object is actually a factory for creating all your variables and constraints. So the next step will be to define your decision variables. So you can create individual decision variables, or you can also create collections of decision variables. I mean, you can create a vector or matrix of decision variables. So this is done like this. I mean, so you can, with mathematical programming, you can have discrete or continuous decision variables. Then you are going to define constraints over those variables. So Python was very useful because of it's possible to overload all the operators. So this helps a lot, I mean, to keep the same flavor of those decisions as those dedicated modeling language to define the constraints. For example, here, we create a new constraint, which is an inequality between a decision variable and another decision variable or another data. So the lesser or equal, I mean, it's not a comparison that is made at runtime. What it does actually, because this operator has been overloaded, is that it creates an object which is a representation of this constraint and in memory. Also, I mean, it's the aggregation. I mean, there is a sum aggregation operator, so that it is used to create a linear expression. So here we just sum over all stores. I mean, this collection. I mean, of decision variables, and it is enforced to be lesser than the capacity. So what this means is that a store cannot, a warehouse cannot, we just sum in a warehouse over all the possible stores that it supplies, and this flow cannot exceed the actual capacity of the warehouse. Okay. So what we have is really the same kind of flavor of the dedicated modeling language for modeling the constraints. Then also we define the objective, so it can be a minimize or maximize function. And again, so we can have the sum of some expression. Those variables are actually expressions. They can be defined elsewhere as expressions. Or we could also have here, an aggregation over some decision variables. So this is the definition of your model. Then at the end, you want to solve your model. So there are several, 2 ways to do it. You can either solve it locally if you already have an instance of CPLEX locally, or you can submit it to the cloud. So in that case, you just need to provide an URL and what we call an API key, which is a kind of, which defines your privileges or your credentials for using the service on the cloud. So this is what it looks like. So I'm just checking it. Okay, it's good. So what I wanted to do is just to show you an example of the use of DoCPlex with a simple optimization problem and using a notebook. So, okay, notebooks, as I said, it's really great, and actually, this notebook can be downloaded. It is available on GitHub. So, as I said, it's very nice technology because you can combine documentation with your code, and you can execute from this environment. So, in this simple example, just to illustrate, we are a coffee company, and we plan to open N shops in the near future, and in Chicago, in the city of Chicago. And actually, what we know, we know about our customers that our customers, they enjoy reading and buying books. So what we want to do actually just to locate those coffee shops close to the libraries in the city. So just to illustrate, it's a very simple problem. So it's a kind of, what we want to do, it's a kind of, the problem is an N cluster optimization problem. Okay. So first step, what we do, in the notebook is first to install, the DoCPlex package. So it's very standard, it's a pip install. Then we are going to configure our credentials, if we want to do the solve on the cloud. So it's simple. Then, okay, in the workflow, we need to get access to the input data. So in a typical, in the workflow, what we can do, for example, in this case, we want to download the location of libraries from the internet. So this data is actually available from, it's provided by the city of Chicago. So it's just a simple piece of code that just downloads the geographical location of libraries in Chicago, and it's used to populate, a data structure, just to get access, to the geographical locations. So then, we may want to validate this data, in the workflow, that's a current workflow. So one way to do it here, it can be just to visualize, this data on a map. So here we used, for example, the Folium package, which is also an open source package to do visualization on maps. Then the next step, okay, so we imported the data, we validated the data, we visualized the data. The next step, okay, it's really now to build our optimization model. First, we may want to check our environment. There's DoCPlex provides an object which provides information about your runtime environment. So here it says, in which platform, on which platform you are running, whether you have a CPLEX instance available, locally, and also which version of the package you are using. So then, as I presented in the previous slide, the first step is to create the container for your model. So that's, you create the model instance. The next step is to create your decision variables. So in this model, actually, okay, we have a number of candidate locations for opening the coffee shops. And so this is modeled as a list of variables, of binary variables. So there's one binary variable for each candidate location, and this binary variable will indicate whether this coffee shop will be open or not. Then lower, I mean, there's another decision variable, which is actually we want for each library, we create kind of an edge to all possible locations for a coffee shop. So the goal is really to be able to model any possible combination, any possible assignment between a library and a coffee shop. So then that's the list of constraints, I mean, to model this problem. So again, notebooks are very nice because you can have sections, and in each section you can document what the constraint is actually doing. So here the purpose of the first constraint is just to exclude suspicious data. So here we just iterate through all the possible combinations of library and coffee shops. And if the distance is too large, then we consider it suspicious. And we create a constraint that says, okay, I mean, this library cannot be linked or connected to this coffee shop. So we force this decision variable to be 0. Then there's a second constraint, which says that each library must be linked to a coffee shop that is open. So what it means is that, I mean, if a coffee shop is not selected in the solution, then this decision variable, which is supposed to model the fact that the library is connected to this coffee shop, should be forced to be 0 also. So this is modeled by this inequality. So if this decision variable is 0 because the coffee shop is not selected, then this decision variable is also forced to 0. So this constraint is built for all possible combination of libraries and coffee shops. The third constraint, the purpose of the third constraint is to indicate that a library in our solution is linked to a single coffee shop. So okay, so it is modeled this way. So I mean the number actually from the library, if we sum across all the possible edges that goes out of this library or this vertex, then we have this sum has to be equal to 1. Then the last constraint is that we decided how many coffee shops we want to open. So that means that the sum over all possible candidate locations for the coffee shop variable, decision variable, this sum has to be equal to the number of shops that we want to open. So that's the description of the model. So the purpose of this model is to define what is a valid solution to the problem. So then, okay, or just an information. I mean, at the end, I mean, the print information actually gives you some information about the size of your model. I mean, how many decision variables you have and how many constraints you have. Then, among all those possible solutions, I mean, you want to select the best one. So in our case, what we want to do is to minimize the total walking distance between a library and coffee shops. So the purpose of this expression actually is to quantify, I mean, for a given solution, I mean, what will be this total walking distance? So this is the purpose of, I mean, of this expression. I mean, it's just the sum. So this link variables indicates what are the actually connections that have been selected in the solution. And then there is a distance which is associated to each of those connections. And so we just sum over all possible edges. So all possible combination of coffee shops and libraries. And this is the actual total walking distance for for a possible solution. And we want to actually minimize this total distance. So now we have a complete formulation of the problem, and we want to solve it. So here, okay, so we can just solve it, I mean, on the cloud. So the way it works is that by running, I mean, the duplex script, we created a representation in memory of the model, of the problem. And this representation is sent to the optimization engine. So when I mean, to be a bit technical, when it is sent on the cloud, actually it is translated in a flat, I mean, text format. which is a known, documented format for Cplex, so it's called a LP format. So this model is translated, is exported as a LP file, which is sent on the cloud. Or if it is executed, if you have a Cplex instance locally, then there's a low-level, matrix-oriented API for Cplex that is used to populate, to send the optimization problem to Cplex. So then, okay, we do the solve, and then at the end of the solve, all the decision variables have taken the values that correspond to the best solution. That means to the ones that minimize the total distance. So here, what we do is we just, the purpose of those lines is just to retrieve the value of those decision variables and to populate a data structure so that the result can be visualized on a map. So here, the red flags, markers correspond to the selected coffee shops, and the red edges correspond to the association or the links that have been selected for between a coffee shop and libraries. So really, the purpose of this sample example is just to illustrate, a complete example, a complete workflow for an optimization solution. Optimization is not only about the model itself, finding the best solution to a model, but you also need to take care of what is before and after. All the phase, all the data import and validation. And Python provides really a nice framework for handling all this workflow. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about pandas. So, actually, as I said, in those optimization models, they make an intensive use of matrix representations. So with simple models, it's fine, but when you want to handle, very large models, there are some performance issues, and using a package like Pandas is very convenient, it's very useful to improve the modeling capabilities. So I will illustrate that. In optimization, when you model an optimization problem, there are two important constructs that are intensively used. Those are, what we call the slicing filters and aggregate. So the purpose of slicing filters is just to, it's to select a set of items in a large collection, that may be structured as a multidimensional matrix. And the purpose of aggregate is just, it's used in combination with slicing, and its purpose is to build the actual mathematical expression. So I will illustrate this with a with an example. This constraint, okay, it's extracted from a much more complex model, which is used, to calculate the repositioning of containers between depots. So that's enough, to understand that. So the purpose of these constraints is that we want to calculate how much volume in containers are moved between two depots. On a leg is actually a connection between two depots, and on a specific week. So what we do, okay, so the trans variable is actually the decision variable, which indicates how many containers of a given type we are going to move. And so we just need to multiply, this number of containers by the size of the containers. But actually, these decision variables, this number of containers, it's also indexed, by a big collection, which represents all the possible combinations. Combination, it's a kind of Cartesian product between all the possible legs, all the possible mode of transport, because the container can be moved using a truck or trains or a boat, all possible dates, in your planning horizon, and all possible container types. So these are all the possible options or combinations that have to be taken, that have to be considered. So this Cartesian product, this big collection, is used to index the decision variables. So, and what we want to do is actually to collect, to take the subset of those decision variables that correspond to the selected leg and the selected week. So that's what we call, a slicing. So, and this is done with those conditions. So this is what the formulation of this constraint looks like in the OPL language. If we translate it in the duplex in Python, actually it looks a lot, it's very similar. We have those nested loops, we have the constraint, and it really looks a lot, it's very similar. And the slicing is done by implementing those tests when we iterate on the collections of all the possible indexes for the decision variable. However, so that's okay with a small problem. But what we're missing here is that in those specialized languages, they're very used, they're designed for handling those slicing very efficiently. So we don't see it here, but it does not iterate through all this collection at each time. It's done very efficiently and in the background, and you are not even aware of it. In Python, if you do the naive implementation, then there are some performance issues, because what we do here is that for each iteration of the nested loops, we iterate through the complete collection, which can be used, which can be huge. Sorry. So, there are some performance issues when you have large models. So, yes, so we have to consider, those performance issues. So running model, runtime model generation, should be as effective as possible. Why? Because in practice, in production, a model can be invoked thousands of times. Also, large models may involve millions of variables and constraints. So that means that this naive translation, as I've shown before, can be very inefficient, and especially when there are some nested loops. And that's why, packages like pandas can be very useful, because they are designed for handling slicing on large collections. So duplex can really benefit of the following Panda features. The data organized in multi-index tables, because that's what we manipulate in optimization models. Pandas provide efficient merge operations between tables, and also efficient indexing and filtering and grouping operations on tables is provided by Panda. So let's have a look at our previous example. So this is the same naive slicing example I've shown before. So if we want to do the same using Panda, what we want to do is that, okay, this slicing part, we would like to do it using, the Pandas slicing operation. So this is done, first, there's a bit of transformation to do. First, because there's an indirection here, we index, from the date associated with the current decision variable, we actually want to consider the corresponding week index. So there's an indirection. So we actually add a new column to the input data frame that calculates this indirection. So it's done once. Then slicing can be done directly on this new data frame. So this is done here. And then, so we're missing the line. We just iterate through this slice df data frame to create the constraint. So here, so it's just for, it's not very, how to say it, just for information. It should not be, so here in this example, it took about 6 seconds to run this slicing with this naive approach. Here, we don't see the number, it takes 4 seconds and a half. So it's not big improvements, but it's already significantly better. But however, we're still missing something. When we are used to Panda, is that the slicing actually it's calculated inside the nested loop. So that means each time we create a new data frame for representing the result of the slicing. So actually, there is a cost of creating this resulting data frame, which is incurred at each iteration. So even if it is better compared to the naive slicing formulation, I think it would be much better, I mean a much better strategy. It's actually to pre-compute all the slicing outside the nested loops. And this can be done also thanks to the pandas, I mean group by and aggregate operations. So now, I mean, be careful. Okay, it's a bit ugly. I mean, it's a bit more verbose because there's a bit more of preparation or pre-computation to do. So we do need to create an additional column to our data frame to represent, I mean, the product of the decision variable times the size of the containers. But then also, I mean, there's an issue in Panda is that, okay, we want to use a group by, I mean, we want to, okay, what we want to do is to pre-compute all the possible results of the different slicing. So this is done with the group by. So we're going to do the group by on the same indices, on the same variables as those that are used in the nested loops. And also on each group, we will also do we will use the aggregate operation to calculate the actual linear expression. So this is done here. So, and then we can, I mean, the formulation of the constraint, I mean, it's very simple because we just iterate through the different groups, which index, for which, I mean, the result, we directly get the linear expression. So, I mean, here the result is really a data frame, which is indexed by legs and weeks. And each entry in this data frame is an actual expression. So it's an object which represents the expression. And then here, to create the constraint, we just iterate through all the different groups. In that case, I mean, we achieve an execution time which is about around 2 seconds. I mean, it's just for illustrative purpose. I mean, in some of the cases, I mean, we have a 10-fold or sometimes 100-fold factor between the naive formulation and this kind of formulation. Also, okay, so it's a bit more verbose, but we can see that there is always the same pattern that is used. And by using some helper methods, we can actually simplify, I mean, the formulation, and it looks like something like that. I mean, we created a helper method that does all the merging and the group by and aggregation on the input data frame. So this can be compared to the initial slicing formulation, I mean the naive slicing formulation. So it's a bit more verbose, but it's about the same complexity. However, I mean, for people who are are familiar or used a lot with modeling languages, I mean, this kind of representation is a bit more abstract. I mean, there's a level of abstraction that has been added so that you pre-compute all those slicing. But, I mean, that's a cost to pay for efficiency, for performance. So there's really, I mean, this performance versus, I mean, readability or maintainability trade-off. Okay. So this is my conclusion. I mean, so our experience, as I try to demonstrate in this presentation, is that really Python, it's really great, I mean, for doing optimization. Because, I mean, as I've shown, you can really support, I mean, implement your complete workflow in Python. I mean, for data import, modeling, solving, visualization. So the purpose of Duplex, okay, it's really to take advantage of the Python programming language and to provide an alternative to the specialized modeling language. Also, I mean, its purpose is really to facilitate the diffusion and the use of optimization technologies. I mean, it should not be dedicated to operations research experts because, I mean, there are some simple problems that are not difficult to implement in this framework, and we hope that Duplex can help for that. Also, I mean, even if, I mean, Duplex and Pandas, I mean, can provide a good alternative to the specialized modeling languages, I mean, it's still a work in progress. I mean, we are not at the same, I mean, we get a flavor of the same flavor as those modeling languages, but those specialized modeling languages, I mean, they also provide a framework for debugging and testing models. And in Python, I mean, when you get an exception, I mean, a problem, you get this huge exception, It can be a bit difficult to exploit and to debug your model. But I mean, we're working a lot, I mean, to improve, I mean, those capabilities. First, by defining, I mean, best practices and patterns for address, I mean, those performance issues that I've presented, and also to facilitate the formulation of models. And that's the end of my presentation. So I hope I convince you, I mean, you data community or data-oriented community, to also try, I mean, optimization. Thank you.